Welcome to today's explainer. We're actually going to skip the usual preamble today because we have a truly phenomenal story to dive straight into. We are going to unpack the anatomy of a champion by looking at an emotionally charged, beautifully enduring narrative, the fictional yet deeply resonant legacy of the legendary racehorse Thunderhoof. This isn't just a story about raw speed, it's a profound look at the life cycle of greatness, the literal physical toll of athletic perfection, and the undeniable absolute power of willpower and heart. To really understand this, we actually have to start at the end. I want you to picture this. A perfect, golden late spring afternoon at Willowbrook Farm. The air smells of fresh-cut hay and blooming clover. And standing there, right in the wide doorway of the main stable, is an aging horse the entire farm simply knows as Uncle Theo. Which brings us to the absolute central question driving our explainer today. What happens when the fastest champion in history grows old? When the grandstands are empty and the earth-shaking roar of the crowd is just an echo. To really ground us in the physical reality of our subject, think about the number 27. In horse years, 27 is old. Uncle Theo is living in a body that carries the accumulated stiffness of literally thousands of hard-fought miles on dirt, turf, and sand. His knees and hocks ache, he has a gently swayed back, pretty characteristic of old warriors, actually, and he shifts his weight really carefully to protect a chronically sore right hip. He is, for sure, in a state of well-earned rest. Now, what's really interesting about this contrast is how striking it is. Today, Uncle Theo is peaceful, his fiery chestnut coat frosted with silver hairs. But years ago, the racing world knew this exact same animal as Thunderhoof, the Red Thunder. He was a Triple Crown legend. He was a force of nature that literally made the earth tremble beneath his hooves. The juxtaposition of this serene, achy senior with the blazing meteor of his youth sets the stage for the whole shebang that follows. But, as you can guess, this peaceful retirement is suddenly disrupted. Out in the paddock, 3 boastful, energetic young horses, a sleek black colt named Lightning, a nimble bay filly named Breeze, and a fierce dapple gray named Storm decide to taunt the old legend. They want one race on the empty training track. Storm stamps his heavy hoof and drops this challenge, literally asking if the great Thunderhoof is scared to eat their dust. It's the classic inciting incident, right? The untested, arrogant youth challenging the weathered, retired master. But before we see how Uncle Theo answers that challenge, we need to shift our narrative back in time to understand how this peaceful old horse became a global icon in the first place. So, part 1. Born in the storm, building a legend. Let's rewind. Thunderhoof was born on a raging spring night, and from day one, he had unbelievable raw speed. But his veteran trainer, Elias Whitaker, knew that raw speed was dangerous without structure. It'll just burn up. So Whitaker implemented a strict 3-step methodology when the colt turned 18 months old. Step 1, slow morning trots through wooded trails. This was all about building perfect rhythm, balance, and patience. Step 2, afternoon breezes on the track to carefully, intentionally stretch out that speed. And step 3, and I think this is the most fascinating part, evening storytelling. Elias would sit by the lantern light and just tell the horse stories of all-time greats, like Secretariat and Seabiscuit, all to forge his spirit. And this brilliantly illustrates the core theme of our explainer. Elias Whitaker told the farm owner, raw speed without wisdom and discipline will burn itself out young. We must shape him carefully with patience and love. So the absolutely crucial point here is that physical talent is nothing, literally nothing, without character and mental fortitude. Thunderhoof wasn't just trained physically, his mind and his heart were deliberately cultivated. Okay, let's dive into this and analyze his explosive 3-year-old Triple Crown campaign. We can treat these victories as hard historical data points of his peak physical condition. In the Kentucky Derby, he was bumped hard at the start and dropped to dead last, yet somehow he rallied to win by 3.5 lengths. Incredible. In the Preakness, he faced tight turns and a really tough early duel, but he just blew past the field to win by 5 lengths. And then the Belmont Stakes, the ultimate test of stamina at 1.5 miles. He was pushed to the absolute limit by a rival named Shadowfax, grinding out a victory by a literal nose. I want to pause on this number right here. 150,000. That's enough to fill multiple, massive stadiums. And that is the amount of people roaring continuously at Churchill Downs during his Derby run. Just imagine the immense psychological pressure on a 3-year-old animal. The ground is literally vibrating, he's at the back of the pack. To overcome that wall of sound, the dirt flying in his face, the massive adrenaline dump, and still execute a flawless, record-approaching rally, that requires the exact mental discipline Elias Whitaker instilled in him during those quiet morning trots. But every champion learns that glory always demands payment.
Which brings us to part 2, Trials of Fire, the price of glory.
Because at age 4, disaster strikes. He suffers a strained right foreleg tendon after a brutally fast race, and what follows is 4 agonizing, lonely months of cold saltwater therapy and equine swimming pool rehab. His trainer actually slept on a cot outside his stall, constantly telling the horse he didn't have to come back, but Thunderhoof demanded it. He returned later that season to dominantly capture the Travers Stakes, and then he traveled all the way across the ocean to win the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe on completely unfamiliar French turf. This proves without a shadow of a doubt that his comeback was driven entirely by his heart, not just his physical mechanics. Now consider his late career rivalry, because this really builds his legacy. It's like a clash of titans. Here is Thunderhoof, running on sheer will after his injuries, facing his greatest threat, Eclipse. Eclipse was this magnificent coal-black warrior from a powerful rival stable. Their epic 4th meeting at the Breeders' Cup Classic is stuff of legend. Both were past their absolute physical peaks, so it wasn't about raw speed anymore, it was a grueling war of attrition. They ran stride for stride the entire mile and a quarter. Thunderhoof had to reach deeper into his soul than ever before to win by just half a length, literally leaving Eclipse's jockey to tip his cap in profound respect. Now, let's jump back to the present. Part 3. The race that time remembered. We are squarely back at the present-day dirt track at Willowbrook Farm. The young upstarts have brought the 27-year-old legend out to the gate. The old farm bell chimes, the gates crash open. The 3 young horses launch forward in this explosive burst of raw, youthful power, leaving a golden curtain of dust in their wake. And we're left with this incredibly gripping question. Could the old legend, whose joints creaked for the first 20 strides, really keep up with this cocky young generation? Well, watch the mechanics unfold. His initial stiffness fades. The creaking joints, gone. Deep in his chest, an ancient, dormant energy stirs to life. Decades of perfectly honed muscle memory seize total control. He lengthens his stride. He closes the gap. He surges smoothly past the completely terrified youngsters like a living red shadow and crosses the finish line 5 full lengths ahead. No way. And as the shocked, panting youngsters cross the line, Lightning asks in absolute reverence, how? And Uncle Theo delivers this beautiful, incredibly humbling truth. He says, because once upon a time, little ones, I was Thunderhoof. I did not run with my legs alone. I ran with my heart. The physical speed was just a vehicle, right? It was the indomitable spirit inside that powered the machine all those years. So let's wrap this up with Part 4, The Heart of a Champion, Final Lessons. We transition now from the dusty afternoon track to the warm, glowing lantern light of the evening stable. The young horses, who are newly humbled, gather around Uncle Theo under the stars to hear his story. After recounting his stormy birth, the roaring crowds, the agonizing injuries, and the bitter rivalries, Uncle Theo distills his entire century of lived experience down to this single, powerful dichotomy. Speed is a gift. Heart is a choice you make every single morning. Think about that. You don't choose your raw talents or your physical peaks, but you absolutely do choose your discipline, your resilience, and your kindness. Which leaves us here. Thunderhoof's story brilliantly illustrates that the physical vessel is temporary. The greatest race he ever ran was the long, difficult journey from fiery colt to wise, kind old uncle. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. The body will inevitably slow down, but what will you choose to build with your heart while you still have the speed? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope you take Uncle Theo's enduring wisdom with you today. See you next time.